January 2021. The month I released this video is the official 20th anniversary of the game RuneScape. I could say a lot about RuneScape. It doesn't have the greatest graphics, or the most exciting gameplay. But I'll instead save you the time and explain to you why it survived 20 years with a single word: charm. Particularly what has made it stand out for so long is the thing it does better than any MMO, and that's quests. In any other MMO, your typical quest is to go here, kill this monster X number of times, then return for a reward. Boring! RuneScape does something much different. It instead takes you on strange but engaging stories that feel more like something from a point-and-click adventure game than your average Skinner box simulator. And RuneScape is still miles ahead of current MMOs when it comes to story content. A big part of the enjoyment of quests is the often silly, over-the-top humour that's absent in other MMOs. The quests feel like a remnant of old point-and-click adventure games like Day of the Tentacle or Monkey Island, usually involving the player being tasked to do something pretty simple that ends up getting increasingly ridiculous. One example would be the quest Monk's Friend, where a monk has gotten drunk and you have to help him sober up for an event. That event being another party. But no quest exemplifies this better than the infamous One Small Favour. It begins with us speaking to the antique store owner Yanni in the jungle village of Shiloh, who tasks us to fetch some red mahogany logs from a nearby forester. We speak to the forester, who asks us to do another small favour and help her fix her blunt axe in exchange for the log. To do that, we'll have to take a ship to Port Sarim and speak to the axe shop owner, Brian. After the boat trip, we speak to Brian and he says he's too worried about his friend being imprisoned and needs someone trustworthy to vouch for him, asking us to speak to Aggie the Witch in the town of Draenor. So we go to the town of Draenor and speak to Aggie. Aggie is too preoccupied with looking for her missing apprentice, Jimmy the Chisel, and says she can't help us until we find him. So we're tasked to do yet another small favour and find out where he is. We find Jimmy in the Lumbridge mines, held captive by a racist, monster-hating cult called HAM, who refuse to let him go unless we get them a month's supply of chickens from the local farmer. So we speak to the farmer, who says that we need to... I think you get the point from here. Before you know it, we've ventured quite literally the entire end of the world at this point. After accepting so many favours for people all over the world and reaching the continent opposite from where we started, now we have to backtrack the way we came in order to fulfill all of them. Until finally we get back to Yanni, who asks us why it took so long. It was only one small favour. But it's not the only quest of its kind, and its zaniness is not limited to just this quest. Take another quest, Cold War, for example. Take another quest, Cold War, for example. A penguin zookeeper is convinced that the penguins are rising up and plan to take over the world. We of course don't take him seriously at all, but indulge him nonetheless, only to find out that there's some truth to his crazy conspiracy. We create a clockwork penguin suit that we control from the inside after being resized by a spell, so that we can infiltrate their base on an iceberg. Turns out they can speak our language just fine, and it's not us that's observing them in the zoo, It's them that's observing us. These spy penguins call themselves the KGP and are from a place called Palingrad in the motherland. And in order to get inside their base on the iceberg, we're required to get a fake ID card from a macaroni penguin called Noodle, who's the leader of the so-called fettuccine mafia. I think now you get the idea of just how ridiculous RuneScape quests can be. And all I've done is touch the surface. The game is caked with this kind of humour, and while it might seem pretty stupid, it certainly makes it far more memorable than any other MMO on the market. You can say whatever you want about RuneScape, but you cannot deny it has a unique charm, and that's something that Jagex is aware is important to RuneScape's identity.
For me, RuneScape is the ultimate adventure. You have the opportunity to be a hero in a medieval fantasy world, saving people's lives, killing dragons, all sorts of really fantastical things. And it's an experience that you share with thousands of people at the same time. There's mystical, magical properties to the world, so there are goblins and there are orcs and elves and things like that. We never take things too seriously. Yes, you might be battling against forces that are trying to blow up the planet, but you always get a bit of a kind of nudge nudge wink wink joke that the players really enjoy.
I'd help out myself, but I broke my hammer on a hiker last week.
Which is why in this video, I want to talk about a very specific RuneScape quest. I want to discuss the Feud over the Feud. I want to take us back to the year of 2005, specifically the 4th of April 2005, before the first video to YouTube was ever uploaded. A new update was released to RuneScape, which brought in an entirely new town in the once Black Hole Desert. It was called Polnivnich. Alongside Polnivnich came a quest associated with the town, and that of a man named Ali Morrisane, of whom the quest revolves around. Ali Morrisane is a merchant in Al-Kharid, who left his hometown of Polnivnich to set up his business in an area with more traffic. He asks the player for help in finding his nephew, Ali, who's gone missing, with the reward of a month's salary if we do manage to find out where he is. Before we go, Ali asks us to take a look at his wares for things we might need before we venture into the harsh desert. We buy a fake beard and a headpiece, as we might need it later. So, with our water skins filled up to prevent us from perishing in the desert heat, and our runes for magic spells, we head to the town of Polnivnich. When we arrive at Polnivnich, we soon learn that there exists two gangs who control the town, the Bandits of the North and the Menophites of the South. We also quite quickly learn that our task of finding Ali Morrisane's nephew, Ali, is going to be a lot more difficult than we thought. As it turns out, almost everyone in Polnivnich is called Ali. The men are called Ali, the women are called Ali, the camels are called Ali, and yes, the cats are also called Ali. The quest never explains why everyone is called Ali, but it was later revealed in an in-character developer postbag that the reason was because, decades ago, the previous owner of the mansion in Polnivnich was to be given to Ali. Perhaps a mistake in his will, there was no one by the name of Ali in his family. So, everyone changed their name to Ali in an attempt to claim the inheritance. It eventually just became tradition to give everyone the name of Ali from that point onwards. We decide to head to the bar and ask around for Ali M's nephew. Ali the drunk says he knows why we're here, and that he has information. But first, we'll have to buy him a drink. He then begins to ramble about how he knew him when he was young and how he was a little mischievous beggar. We stop him and specifically ask about his nephew's whereabouts, to which he says he needs another drink. We oblige again. He then begins to ramble once more about how Ali M has a big family, but our character is aware of his tricks and has just about had enough of him taking advantage of us. He eventually tells us that Ali M's nephew disappeared last week, and that it might have something to do with the local gangs in town, and that if we were to find a way to stop their feuding, we might get an answer from them. So we speak to the Menophites, who claim that ages ago the bandits stole a camel, a grave crime in these parts. We ask if the bandits were to gift them a camel, would it resolve the tensions between them, to which the Menophites answer yes. So we speak to the bandits to figure out what their problem is with the Menophites. The bandits claim that ages ago the Menophites stole a camel, a grave crime in these parts. We ask if the Menophites were to gift them a camel, would it resolve the tensions between them, to which the bandits answer yes. So we decide to speak to Ali the camel man and inquire about how much 2 camels would cost. Ali claims that he cannot simply put a price on the life of 2 majestic beings, and that they're worth far more than the crass value of gold coins. We offer him 500 gold, and he immediately accepts. Returning to the gangs, we give them a receipt each for 1 camel. Unfortunately, the gangs refuse the offer, claiming that they would only accept if it was 10 camels instead. So it's clear we're not going to be able to end the hostilities between the gangs, but we might be able to worm our way into one and get some information that way. So we speak to Ali the operator, who's willing to employ us into the ranks, but only if we carry out a few trials, involving stealing from the local villagers. So we do, and with the help of a local street urchin, we're able to pick from their pockets thanks to his distraction. Our last trial is to steal by force, luring a villager somewhere secluded before hitting them over the head and stealing from them while they're unconscious. Hey, this might not be the most adult game in the world, but it has its dark spots. And with that, we're finally part of the Menophites gang. We're tasked once again, this time with stealing the prized jewel of Ali the mayor's wife. We sneak into his house with the help of a disguise. Not really sure why that would make a difference, but it does make us look funny. We crack open the safe, get the jewels, and head back to Ali, who tells us that there's a traitor in their midst, and that we have to take care of it. We ask one of the Menophites who they think the traitor could be, to which we're told that it might be possible, to our and Ali the operator's shock, traitorous Ali is the one who's deceiving us, and so we're tasked with getting rid of him. We speak to Ali the barman, who claims that traitorous Ali left to find a toilet, where nobody has ever seen one, ever, but he left his beer on the table. It becomes clear that the best way to dispose of Ali would be by poisoning him, but we'll need help, so we speak to Ali the hag, short for Alice, of course, who helps us concoct a wicked potion that we'll pour into his drink, but we'll need to get some snake venom and some fresh camel dung. We speak to Ali the snake charmer, who gives us a snake charming kit, which we use on one of the nearby snakes, capturing it. But we don't have all day to wait for a camel to do its business, so we're going to need to find a faster way of collecting its treasure. After talking to Ali the kebab seller, he tells us that his special hot sauce is what makes his kebab special. We ask him for a bottle, to which he gives us, but only if we promise not to put it in drunken Ali's drink. A promise I did not keep. We use the hot sauce on the camel's food trough, and sure enough, we've got our ingredients. We head back to Ali, who gives us a potion that will poison Ali's drink. We head back to Ali's bar and poison Ali's drink. After, we return to Ali and let him know the deed is done. His boss is impressed and wishes to talk to us. After a short conversation with him though, it's clear that the Menophites are way in over their head and plan to take over the entirety of Gillinor. after conquering Polnivnic. Who knew that criminal gangs held such evil goals? Our player has just about had enough of this and fights the Menophyte leader's guard. After being disposed of, the Menophyte leader flees and they no longer hold the control they once did. Proud of ourselves for doing probably the first morally acceptable act of the entire quest, we are now ready to earn the gratitude of the local allies. Shockingly, they are disgusted by our holier-than-thou attitude of trying to resolve everything with violence. Before, the gangs were kept in line by each other. But now, with the Menophytes weakened, the bandits are free to control the town without any opposition. Now we have to deal with the bandits. The bandit leader is impressed with us, offering a position in his gang. When we refuse and ask him to leave, he offers gold, to which we have no interest in. He sends his champion after us, who we also take care of. With peace restored to Polnivnic, we head back to Ali the Mayor to inform him of the updated circumstances. He's much happier that the threats are taken care of, even if our methods are not to his liking. But most importantly, he finally helps us out by telling us about Ali M's nephew. It was the mayor himself who asked him to leave, as he was angering the town by coercing them into buying things that they honestly didn't need. He wasn't scamming anyone or doing anything illegal, he was simply too good a salesman. However, when he angered both the bandits and the Menophytes, he was no longer safe, and so left to start up his own business somewhere else. With that, our quest is pretty much complete. We unfortunately were unable to find Ali M's nephew, but we at least know he's probably safe. Before we leave, we inform the mayor that, someone may have broken into his home. No idea who that was though. After heading back to Al-Kharid, we discuss our findings with Ali Morrisane. Ali's happy that his nephew is doing well for himself, though we interject by saying he's considered to be a thief and a swindler by his hometown. Ali defends him by saying that those people willingly parted with their money and received what they purchased. It begins to dawn on the player that there are some striking similarities between Ali M and his nephew. Both come from Polnivnic, both are superb salesmen, and both are considered conniving thieves. The player also finds it strange that Ali M would not know where someone as talented as his nephew is working, as he would be a direct competitor to his uncle, which probably means Ali M doesn't have a nephew, but has an uncle, which would also mean he sent us to Polnivnic knowing that we're looking for someone that doesn't exist, and that the entire purpose of this quest was so that you could sell us a stupid fake beard and hat in the beginning. After all this, we can only come to one conclusion. Ali Morrisane is truly the greatest salesman in all of Gielinor. So, there you have it. RuneScape encapsulated. A ludicrous story with facetious jokes. Now, why did I just spend all this time discussing the quest with you? By now, you must fully understand what makes a RuneScape quest. Preposterous requests with absurd comedy. It's all in good fun. Farcical and light-hearted. So, what is the point of this video? My entire preamble and walkthrough of the feud exists to set the tone and context for the kind of comic mischief you can expect to see in RuneScape. But, as I said before, that was 2005. It's now 2021, nearly 16 years since the quest's release. I may have some people watching this video who are younger than the release of this quest. Not just RuneScape, but the world has changed a lot in this time. And RuneScape has survived many trends and fads in gaming. However, it was close to death in 2013, after Jagex made a massive change to the game's combat system, causing players to jump ship. So much so that they nearly collapsed Jagex as a company. It's at that frenzied time when they decided to do something nobody thought they would ever do. Release an older version of the game. This decision saved Jagex, and ever since its release, old school RuneScape, based on a 2007 build, has surpassed the main game's player count. The reason you were able to see this older 2005-like footage I showed you in this video was purely because I was playing that older version of the game. Which now takes us to modern day. In February 2020, Jagex released a small update for RuneScape 3 that included a bunch of small quality of life updates that made doing things in the game a bit easier. In this same game update, however, came another series of changes, titled Diversity Updates. We're holding our hands up on this one. In the past, we could have done a better job of fostering diversity in-game. But as they say, the best time to get started is now, and so today we've made the following small changes to help RuneScape be a happier and more inclusive place. The word gypsy has been removed from Aris's name, as this word could be interpreted as a racial slur. Aris is a fourth wall breaking gypsy fortune teller. A lot of characters in RuneScape are named after their occupation, as you saw earlier. I have no idea how this could be interpreted as a racial slur. Various NPCs in Karamja have now been given more appropriate titles. Unfortunately, they don't specify what NPCs were changed, but it seems that they changed jungle savages into jungle dwellers. But it's the third and final change that was the most controversial decision by far, and the reason I made this video. Various NPCs in the Caribbean desert have had their name changed from Ali to better reflect the diverse variety of names we see in real life. This is, by far and away, the worst change they've made in this update. There's no better way to demonstrate why this change is so terrible than to go through the quest again, this time on the modern version of the game. Abridged, obviously. We speak to Ali M in Al-Kharid, who sends us to Polnivnich to find his nephew. We arrive to find ourselves in a desert town where nobody is called Ali, except the cats. The cats are still called Ali. We speak to Faisal, the barman, and Jalal the drunk. We speak to the gangs and decide to buy a camel for each of them. We purchase receipts from Sami the camel man. It fails to resolve their issues, so we speak to Rashid the operator to join his gang. We do some thievery and gain his trust. We burgle from Hakim the mayor and steal his jewels. We're then tasked to dispose of a traitor, who turns out to be traitorous Hisham. We speak to Mesa the hag, that's the worst one, who will concoct a poison for us if we get the ingredients. We speak to Badir the snake charmer to obtain a snake charming kit. We capture a snake and get some hot sauce from this guy, and use it on Jasim the camel's food trough. Because even camels need diverse names, except both of the camels in this pen are called Jasim, or Jasim. We get the potion, use it on the beer, and speak to the Menifite leader. I guess he doesn't need a name. Or the bandits. We attack his guard, speak to the not named Ali villagers who are pissed off, take out the bandit leader's guard, and finally back to Hakim the mayor. The mayor informs us of Ali M's last whereabouts, and we return to speak to Ali in Al-Kharid. I really don't think it's necessary for me to explain how this change killed the satire from this quest, but I'll dissect the frog anyway. Trying to search for a guy called Ali in a town where everyone is called Ali is a difficult task. It's a pretty big part of the humour of the quest, but in this version, it's non-existent. It's like watching a comedy with all the jokes stripped out. Now, I know that some people will probably be thinking, who cares? It's just a name change, why does it matter? And you know what? You're right. The name changes are really not a big deal. But to look at this change in a vacuum would be incredibly naive. If this change really is so insignificant, why was it changed in the first place? This update was widely criticised by the player base and was so lazily implemented that your character still asked if Mesa's name was Ali, even though that joke doesn't work anymore. It was clearly a half-hearted effort to appeal to a non-existent portion of the player base and to show how Jagex values the importance of diversity. But, okay. maybe the intent was good-natured. Perhaps Jagex aren't so cynical and absent-minded to think that there was anything offensive about it. Maybe Jagex really just thought that giving the townspeople different names would be a nice idea, and they were just unaware of how it breaks the quest. Well, a developer commented on the change, saying they were happy to have made it, arguing that by only having a single name, they existed as a walking joke. Mind-numbingly, the same developer also mentions the White Knights in the same post. Here's the names of the White Knights. Look, I could sit here all day and list a billion walking joke characters in RuneScape, like the trolls for instance, but this video is long enough. Needless to say, it's a bad response. I would say that even though he's being a huge hypocrite about it, his heart is still in the right place, and I can't give him a hard time because of that. But what really blew the lid off this controversy, and confirmed it in my mind, was a tweet by another developer who defended the changes on Twitter, claiming that he was explaining why racism is bad. A Twitter user pointed out the postback that explained why the people of Polnivnic are called Ali, to which the developer said, I mean, quite possibly, the dumbest fucking tweet I read all of last year. Okay, second dumbest tweet. To call that a stretch is a huge understatement. Like, the cognitive dissonance required to tweet something that stupid cannot be understated. Apparently, according to this developer, it's racist because it's stereotypical and offensive to have everyone use the same name. The Ali name is likely a reference to the fact that there are a lot of people called Muhammad in Middle Eastern countries. But where is the racism in that? What does a joke about everyone having the same name have to do with discriminating against a certain race or skin colour? Let's be honest. If everybody in Varrock was called Bob, this would never have been changed for the sake of diversity, now would it? What's crazy to me about this is that this is all because of a name. Yet the people of Polnivnic are robed, carpet riding, scimitar wielding, kebab selling, camel riding desert dwellers. But I guess it's only the names that are the issue. In the 15 years this quest has been out, not a single person has asked for or complained in favour of the changes that were made as a result of this update. There is no forum thread on the website, no Reddit thread, Facebook post, no tweets, nothing. Nobody of the millions of players that have played RuneScape in these many years since took issue with any of the things that Jagex changed from this update. If you truly want diversity, these Ali characters should be elsewhere in the world, instead of just being confined to a very specific region of the game. And just to clear up any confusion, this change was never made to old school RuneScape, which is why I was able to compare both versions of the quest and show you how the joke originally worked. RuneScape is an absurd and goofy game. This quest wasn't made to make a statement, nor was it made to make fun of anyone. It was made to make you laugh. At the very least, crack a smile on your face. Somewhere along the way, Jagex seemed to have forgotten this. Or maybe they're just covering their own ass. Jagex is a type of company that changes their logo to a rainbow flag during Pride Month to appear more progressive, while making money off addicts from the game's god-awful MTX systems. I've neglected to mention the horrendous microtransaction-filled state of modern-day RuneScape, but you can Google it and see the nasty results for yourself. Like Jagex lying to Parliament about how they operate their business, and the predatory tactics that they use in order to appeal to addicts. But hey, they donate a tiny percentage of their earnings to mental health charities, while at the same time profiting from people with mental illness. So I guess that makes up for it. This will not be the last we hear of this kind of self-censorship. Not just within the realm of RuneScape or video games, but other forms of media. Perhaps one day, people will realise that the intent and context behind someone's speech is of far more importance than what words are being used. This is especially true for comedy. It's sad we've reached a point now where companies are now deciding what's acceptable for the public, instead of just allowing someone a choice. Anything that makes someone even slightly uncomfortable now is deemed offensive. Just because something might feel offensive doesn't mean it was intended to be. That's a you problem. There's nothing wrong with deciding that a certain comedian or certain jokes are not for you, but I don't think that gives anybody the right to decide what we should or shouldn't be allowed to laugh at. Of course, there are people who disguise hatred under the guise of jokes. That's why it's important to look at the context surrounding the joke and the reason why it was made in the first place. But as I established in the beginning of the video, RuneScape is basically a game made by your dad. Terrible puns and old references you don't get. This quest was simply a continuation of the kinds of things they had done before. You would have to have absolutely no idea what RuneScape is to think this quest is even remotely offensive. Unfortunately, we live in a time where people would rather act on emotions than common sense. At the end of the day, I would like to think that most people aren't malicious and cruel. Laughter helps us get through the worst of things. It helps us to connect with one another. You only need to look at internet memes to confirm that. To rewrite history and censor is to tell people what they should be laughing at, and that's not funny. And if you can't understand all that, then perhaps the joke is on you.